Hey guys, welcome to The Bottom Half is Red. I'm your host, Barron Longstrath, and I am excited to bring to you a show that is going to give you some thought-provoking discussions. It's going to give you some expert insights to both encourage and some practical steps for how to build an organization that can more effectively introduce the world to Jesus Christ. So what is The Bottom Half is Red? It's all about building a culture of excellence. It's about growing your unique and creative identity. And it's about carrying out the will of God at any cost. So you're going to see that through practical teaching tips, developing a culture of giving, creating branding and marketing, or even methods to help guests feel safe and welcomed. This podcast is going to have you covered. But before we dive into today's episode, I want to take just a moment and extend a special invitation to all of our dedicated listeners. If you're looking to get even more involved in our community and gain some access to some behind-the-scenes stuff, become a Patreon supporter. And you can find that link in the episode description or even on Patreon. Just visit The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, we can't wait to welcome you on board and to share this exciting journey. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Well, welcome back to The Bottom Half is Red, another episode. Hope you enjoyed the last one. Season 2. This is going good so far. We've got a lot of different topics. We're doing a lot of different things on The Bottom Half is Red, and we're covering something that might not get talked about as much as it should. And I think today's episode, we're going to really deal with our perspective on the importance of physical care. So what's going to happen today is Dave is going to help us. He is our excellent executive producer, and he's going to lob some questions my way. And for those of you that probably know, physical care is something that's very important to me. And so I'm going to answer to the best of my abilities. He's going to tag in. He's also very committed to physical care and has been throughout his life. And we'll tell some stories and get into some biblical looks on this. And so I am going to turn the episode in the direction of Dave Tanderup.
We felt like it was really important to be talking about how to take care of your body. And we felt like Pastor Barron Longstrath was a great person to talk about this because he does prioritize taking care of himself. If you've ever been to the church today, you've seen our videos online. It's very self-evident that he takes pride in his appearance. So the first question that I wanted to ask you is, why is physical care important?
I think it's a very important question, and maybe more of an opening statement and then going into some of the potential considerations. Let me say this. For me, physical care is not just about vanity, and I appreciate taking care of myself, but it's not vanity. Physical care is not, for me, it's not a chore, and it's not a waste of or even divided attention. It's not any of those things. So I don't consider it vanity. I don't consider it a chore. I don't consider it divided attention and I need to have a solitary attention. It plays a very vital part in how I'm going to answer this. Physical care is an action of consideration. Okay. So why is it important? Because it's about consideration. If I'm saying it's an action of consideration, I would say you are considering your personal needs. And I can take you to the example of Elijah, who was on a spiritual journey. And we find this in 1 Kings 19. And in the middle of this, now let me put a little backstory here. Elijah's up on top of Mount Carmel. He is all day going after the prophets. He is allowing them time. The fire doesn't fall, then he builds the altar, then he waters the altar, then he prays, the fire comes down, then he slays the prophets of Baal, then he prays until the rain, the rain actually comes, then he runs down the mountain, then he receives word from Jezebel, then he goes on a journey, and it's a spiritual journey, right? He's going into the same area that Moses goes, and he goes off the path. He's a month into this journey, if you would, and finally he falls asleep. We don't ever find anywhere throughout any of this, Dave, that he ever takes care of himself. He's never taken care of himself. And I'm assuming it's happening, but the Bible doesn't record that he's eating. The Bible doesn't record that he's properly sleeping. The Bible doesn't record that he's properly getting, we would say, refreshing, and finally falls asleep. And the interesting thing is the angel of the Lord comes down and says, "Arise and eat. The journey is too great for thee." And he has to do that twice, okay? He doesn't take in consideration, and sometimes leaders, especially ministry, and I can even say, I can attest to this after, nearly 16 years of pastoring, especially pastors, we have this desire for a spiritual journey, and we're leading our families, we're leading our churches, and we're not arising and eating. We're not taking that, let's call it proverbial time, to stop, be refreshed. And so you have to consider that you have personal needs. You have to consider that you have personal limitations. Like, you can't do it all.
No. And so by you taking that time to do that and prioritizing that in your life, you're actually being a role model to the rest of the people that are the rest of the congregation.
I believe that is absolutely the case. There are so many times in the Bible where it says that Jesus healed them all. But there's often times where it says that Jesus healed many. And then there are some times where it says that in the middle of all this, Jesus shuts down the shop and he walks away, realizing that he has his own limitations. Jesus has to leave even this impacting ministry because he realizes I have limitations, and even the greatest role model that has ever existed role modeled the need to have that physical Sabbath, if you would.
Yeah.
And so he took himself out of the picture, even though Jesus Christ himself was the completeness of that picture. He said, I have to remove myself because there's still limitations. And one more thing that it does in consideration is it gives long-term perspective. You're able to say, I have to be the best form of me 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. I'm mid-40s, right? So I'm still young enough to be able to move, to operate, but the next 16 years are going to go quicker than the last 16 years.
And the quality of your life is going to be largely defined on what you do right now.
Exactly right, Dave. And if you don't get habits now, you won't have them 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I cannot help what happens to me genetically if I'm not affecting that by what I eat or how I internalize stress, but I'm just talking about the basic bare bones of your genetics, like they are what they are. And I think that's probably, you can argue that, but I think there's some truth to just, okay, it is what it is. So genetically, I can't help that, but physically I can. And am I considering my family? Like, if I'm not taking steps to care for myself now, imagine 10 years from now when I have heart disease.
Yeah.
Or 10 years from now when I have high cholesterol and I have to have a stent put in. If it's not genetic, if it's food-based, whose fault is that? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think, the importance of self-care is I'm saying, listen, I'm submitting to the realization that I'm human and I'm going to do my best to be my best in the future. I mean, presently, yes, but in the future as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Just because we dedicate our life to Christ doesn't exempt us from the need to be healthy, to be good stewards of the resources that God has given us.
I read a statistic from a book, Faithful and Fractured. This is, the subtitle of that is Responding to the Clergy Health Crisis. And the author suggests that pastors are 10% more likely to be obese than non-clergy. Like the lifestyle, and I understand the lifestyle. Like we center a lot of our communication around a table, sitting, listening. And so, none of us set out on a journey to be overweight or to be unhealthy, or God forbid that we're in a place where we're obese, but our lifestyle pushes that. And so, and I'm speaking to myself and maybe those colleagues of mine that find themselves in the same situation, you have to be intentional. Like, it's important for your family. It's important for your church to say, I know how to deny myself. I know how to give myself rest. Like, you're not a Superman, Dave. I'm not a Superman.
No.
And there's no way that, I'm not exemplifying anything good long-term to my congregation to say I'll be the one to respond to every hospital call or every phone call. And I have convictions about that. And if you want to ask me about that later, you can in the episode. But, and many people in my church, or the church I pastor, I should say that, they poke fun and it's just in good fun. But if you want to get a hold of Pastor, call his wife. But I facilitate 6 to 7 hours worth of phone calls a day. And, there are times in which I realize I have limitations, and I'm considering them by not answering them at that present time to say I'm not my best me, and I'll call them back when I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, I can get wrapped up in the first part of this, and we haven't even got into any of the other questions.
All right. So we touched on why should someone concern themselves with taking care of themselves. How does taking care of yourself impact your overall well-being and your quality of life?
Yeah. Well, you said it a second ago. Some of the benefits of prioritizing your physical health is, without even desiring to be, I am a role model. And so I have noticed in our local congregation that there is a lot of people that are very health attentive. They look at myself or my family, and they notice that we care about the longevity of our life and what kind of present state that we're in, and they push for that as well. A lot of the students are looking at my kids, or there's a lot of adults here that we have that camaraderie in that, whether it be weightlifting or running or some sort of exercise. But it seems like it's becoming more common in our local congregation that people are kind of saying, hey, I want to be healthy as well. He's making good choices. He's exemplifying good choices. And, it's easy to get in a rut, and, 5 pounds a year doesn't seem like much until 10 years. And, it's very difficult in mid-40s to get 50 pounds off. It's not impossible. It's just difficult. Yeah. But you can skirt that by eating better, drinking better, those kinds of things, making small decisions. But so, yeah, your physical health, prioritizing that is going to give you energy, stamina. And the older you get, the more you appreciate that mentally. So your physical well-being affects your mental well-being. The idea of you are what you eat. There are foods that have inflammation, sugars, things of that nature, high carb diet, those kinds of things. If you have midday kind of crashes, you need to examine some of this stuff. So, and I'm not here to tread into areas in which I have no qualification for, but there is a truth to that. Mental clarity. So when you prioritize physical health, you are giving yourself an opportunity to enhance some cognitive function, and as a leader of your family, or, on your job, or, and let me speak consistently to people that are in the kind of industry that I'm in. If you're leading a ministry, a group, or, whatever the case may be, you know the importance of speaking clearly and having good cognitive function. And if you're not taking care of yourself physically, it's going to impact that. And I'm not saying immediately, but you have to think in terms of, over time, or how that you're affected. So, yeah, it gives you some mental clarity, some energy, some, role model. What about emotional resilience? I mean, the list goes on and on, Dave. You have to prioritize health. It is so good for your physical being, and we know that your mental state of being is connected to your physical state of being.
Yeah, mental clarity and the cognitive response, particularly for ministers, is critical, because whether you like it or not, when you're talking to somebody, you don't have to say, "Thus saith the Lord." But a lot of times when you're offering counsel, somebody is going to take that thought that you had in the moment, or maybe like mental faculties weren't quite spun up fast enough, and you say something in a response, and then maybe an hour or two after the conversation, you're like, well, maybe that wasn't quite there, because it's going to shock the audience. But ministers are human. They are people. And
you're going to have to edit that out, bro.
I know. But they make mistakes.
Yeah.
But even still, you bear the weight of people attributing divine weight to what you say. And so it's important for most of the time for you to be cognitively there and to be able to respond with your best self.
Yeah. I just recently downloaded a sleep tracker app, and it's a little bit unnerving because It's paying attention to you while you sleep.
Yeah.
And I've done it every night for the past month. And it's looked at the way that I've sleep, and it grades you. Like, a lot of times I'll be up late and then I have to get up early the next morning, and my sleep score goes down, right, into the 70s or whatever. But it's amazing when my deep sleep, because it shows you how light sleep and deep sleep, so that's that REM state where you're really getting refreshed. And when that is incredibly low, I can look back. I'm like, why am I so tired? Mm-hmm. And my state of being's not there. My listening's not there. I'm not really engaged.
Well, it affects you like your physical performance. So
100%.
I'm sure like you could make a correlation to like just going to the gym and you got bad sleep for a few days, and then you go and the weights that you're putting up aren't quite where you normally are.
Excessive weight gain a lot of times is not enough sleep. And so we think, oh, well, I'm not going to get into the gym, Barron. I'm not going to waste my time in the gym. And I totally understand that. But what about, taking steps during the day? Can you just walk?
Yeah.
Can you just take circles around the block, or ensure that you can get 5,000 or 10,000 steps a day, and then drink enough water, substitute out some of those sugar drinks, drink enough water, and then say, I'm going to get 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, and see what that does over a period of 3 weeks. Why are we willing to statistically try to prove every area of ministry and life except for what is going to help us operate at this level or better 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And that's your health. Like, you owe it to your family, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to those you lead to say, you know what, this is worth paying attention to. Yeah, okay, so you don't want to do the sleep tracker. Fine. But do you know how much you sleep? Do you know if it's affecting you? So all of these things are factors, right? So it might not be one of those that absolutely sinks the ship, but I can guarantee that all of these can be factors in the way that you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, exercise releases endorphins.
It makes you feel better.
And you're going to feel better. So even raising your heart rate to a cardio level, which you can do that in a brisk walk. You don't have to get in the gym. A brisk walk can raise that, which will then lead to endorphins, which will make you feel better. And so imagine starting your day off feeling better, right? Yeah. Imagine just that feeling. And what do you think happens over time? It reduces stress. It promotes emotional durability, right? So, we, especially ministry, we deal with intense struggles. We deal with a lot of emergencies and crisis, and it physically affects us. I just recently was engaged in a weekend where I'm telling you, I don't think I've ever been emotionally as spent as I was here recently on a weekend. I had to do something that if I lived 1,000 years, I would hope that I never had to do that again.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything that evening but lay on the couch. And I just literally just laid on the couch. I wasn't tired. I was emotionally spent. I can't imagine not being in good physical shape and having to feel that for an extended period of time, and what kind of weariness that would cause to the human body. So we deal with this stuff that's so critical all the time. We have got to take control of our health. It is so critical to take control of your own health.
So you've always been very health conscious, but in the past 3 or 4 years, you've put more of a concerted, focused effort. What kind of effect have you seen on your spiritual life with that?
No, that's a great question. I have always been, I guess I could say, health focused. It's been different. Part of my adult life has been spent running. Part of it has been riding, or I call cycling. And I've hurt my knees in that, so I've had to kind of shift my attention. But I'm weight training now because it's something that doesn't affect, I would love to get on the down by the river and run again, or I'm just not there. I had a major knee surgery about a year ago, and so I'm still recovering from that, and that's a byproduct of physical training, so there are some negatives to that. If you're looking for one, there it is, then you can turn the episode off. But it really, Spiritually speaking, I am in a position where my progress, it's seen in years or decades. Like my life's work, and I'm a blessed man, but I don't get to see that. Like, I don't get to go out and cut the grass and be like, it's so good till next week.
Yeah.
Or paint a wall and be like, man, that looks so different. But my life's work progress is based over time, and that wears somebody out. I don't get that chance to just whatever, cut hair and the haircut looks good. I have to see things over a long period of time. And so when I'm in the gym and I'm able to just exert energy, there is a cleansing. I tell people, well, I don't really have time to work out is a statement I hear so often. And Dave and I were talking about this before we started recording. I tell people I don't, excuse the double negative, but I don't not have time to work out, because it is a place where I take a mental vacation every day.
Yeah.
I don't do it Sunday, because Sunday is a day of rest. I give that completely to the Lord, and a lot of time Wednesdays are so busy. But usually 5 to 6 days a week, I take an hour and I block it out, and I don't let anybody into that time except for both my boys work out, and so we'll work out together. And that's a time that I work out. And it releases those endorphins. I feel great. It gives me that preparation to help me engage in what I'm doing. And I'm seeing some immediate results. First 3 weeks, if you started healthy eating and some form of physical exercise, in 3 weeks, 21 days, you're going to see a difference, right? 21 days. That's the standard. In 21, you're not going to be Arnold in 21 days, but you're going to see a difference in 21 days. I don't care if you're 100 pounds overweight or 10 pounds overweight. You're going to see a difference. And that affects you spiritually. That gives you that sense of, I see change. I see immediate change. I can engage better. I'm cleansed. Dave, that's a great word. I don't know if the audience will resonate with the word like I resonate, but I feel cleansed after a workout. Do you feel that way? I literally feel like, I'm exhausted in my body, but it is a cleansing effect to say I've pushed myself. I've denied the comfort zones of myself. I've pushed past these preconceived limitations. I can do this. I can do that. And that has promoted things. I hate to say it, but it has promoted things mentally that has pushed me spiritually as well. And so, there's a great connection between how you feel after you work out and entering into, especially my line of work, entering into the day or the week. And I feel really good. It really does something for me mentally.
How do you, or what do you do to maintain your physical health? What are the steps you take? So you talked about going to the gym. You talked about the things that you eat. Do you have a specific plan, or is it kind of just a general life map?
Probably more of a general life map. Again, you have to look, each person has to look at like their own life, and I can't align myself up to a union worker that takes the same lunch every day and is able to bring their lunch every day. A lot of my life's work is spent around a table. A lot of it is, done over, I don't know, whatever your favorite restaurant is, and you're sitting across. And so you have to make those conscious choices of saying, okay, I'm going to eat to the best of my ability. Here's what I have seen. I have seen that consistent life choices, like consistency. That's what I try to do.
So something like consistently being like, I'm going to eat the grilled chicken instead of eating the burger, because the burger is probably fantastic. Now, the other thing, maybe it's not so great, but I'm going to eat the grilled chicken and I'm going to make that one good choice. It's not to say that you can't ever eat the burger, but as long as you're making more right choices.
And that's what it really amounts to, is making consistent right choices.
Yeah.
So I do know that when I feel that I need that burger, I give myself that burger, because I don't want to become frustrated with, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's like everybody else is eating a burger. Everybody else is eating a slice of pizza. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not that person that wakes up in the morning and takes my body fat count. I don't do that kind of stuff. What I do is more or less I kind of cheat myself. So if I know we're going to be at a place where the food choices aren't as great, then I never eat breakfast, by the way. Intermittent fasting has just helped me immensely. Like I don't eat, like probably 90% of the time I don't eat before noon. Most of the time it's 1. I haven't eaten today yet, and it's 12:44 and I still feel great. So I don't eat before noon normally, so that helps out. That gives your body time to digest. But I also, if I'm going to eat something that evening that I know, hey, we're inviting the family over, we're having pizza, well, I'm not going to sit around and just eat a salad. So for lunch, I may grab a shake or some kind of a light, a can of tuna, or you get what I'm saying? Like, so I cheat that day by eating 4 slices of the best pizza. And I know that's 12 or 15 or 1,600 calories. There's a lot of protein in that because of the cheese and meat, but there's also a lot of carbohydrates. So I'll just cheat and not have 2 big meals that day. Really, I mean, a lot of people are like calories in, calories out every day. I'm more of kind of like, let's look over the course of a week and see how I've done. As long as I have a lot of water and I'm engaged in a lot of, activity, then normally I'm okay. But it's about consistency. So just get into a rhythm of consistency.
In that week overview, I'm thinking about this right now, that week overview and that long-term view feels like it would be a little bit easier to maintain than worrying about like that close proximity. Oh, I lost today, so I might as well throw in the towel and be done. Whereas if you look over a little bit more extended period of time, like a week, you don't want to go like a month or a year or whatever. Like who can track a year? Did I win a year?
Yeah.
But a week is easy enough to say, did I win the week?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's something that you can do. It's not impossible. It's not difficult to say, I'm okay. Like find out what your weight is. There's apps out there, okay, that you just pick your app, My Fitness app. I mean, pick your app that you want to use and find out, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds. Don't be unrealistic and say I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 days or, 2 weeks when that's, your lifestyle doesn't exhibit, you know what I mean? So say I want to lose 20 pounds in 3 months. Okay. So, or let's call it 4 months, whatever. Find out what a negative calorie, or we call a calorie deficit, looks like. And I bet you it's not unreasonable. All you have to do is put yourself, if you eat 3,000 calories a day, if you put yourself back to 2,200 calories and then drink 100 ounces or 80 to 100 ounces of water a day, Dave, it's not hard. Like that water is going to fill you up. Here's the truth of the matter. Is your body can't distinguish between hunger and dehydration.
Yep.
It doesn't have the ability to do that.
Hunger and thirst. It's really bad at that.
It does. Yeah.
So when you're thirsty, your body tells you that you're hungry.
That's
and
exactly
so
right.
You go shove food in your mouth when what you actually need to do is just drink some water.
If you would drink water first and wait and see if you are hungry, well, then eat something, Be right with what you eat. It's not difficult. Be right with what you eat and then move on. I bet you eat less because you drink more. And it's just a byproduct. You don't have that much room to be able to do both.
Well, that's a problem we actually have with my 4-year-old right now is she loves the apple juice. She loves the water, milk, stuff like that. But for breakfast, we need her to eat food. And so we delay giving her any type of water, milk, anything like that, because if you give her a full cup, she will chug that. And then very soon after, she's full and she doesn't want the eggs that are on her plate or whatever it is that we've laid out for her. She's like, I don't want this. And she goes walking away.
Yeah. I mean, think of sitting down at your favorite restaurant and think of like your favorite soda, if it's not diet. And think of, in terms of having whatever, a Dr. Pepper, which I don't like, but a Dr. Pepper. And
you just lost like massive points with
that's
Jeff.
fine. I just can't handle it. It's basically cough syrup. Okay. But you have, let's call it 250 calories in the cup, a large cup at wherever. Mm-hmm. And it's 250 calories or 200 calories. And you don't realize that during that meal, you've looked at it. You're like, oh, there's only 1,000 calories in this meal. That's fine. I'll do a Dr. Pepper. And before you know it, you've had 3 refills. Mm-hmm. You've had 600 calories worth of, and then you get one to go. So you have 750, maybe 800 calories just in the drink alone. That's not counting your meal. That's an 1,800 calorie meal. Most people don't even know what they're consuming. They don't know what they're consuming in a day. And I think that's where it is. So you just have to be intentional about it. I think physical health is about being intentional. Just be intentional about where you are and what realistic goals do you have. Most people dream, but don't set goals. And first you dream about it. You have a vision. Then you have goals. This is where I want to be. Then you have to set your mile markers. And that is your weekly concept that we talked about. And it's just being intentional about it. You don't have to try to aim at being some kind of a bodybuilder, but you do realize that lifting weights is bone density, health. Mm-hmm. So when you get older, a part of being older is the lack of bone density. So, I can't even tell you the benefits of staying active. Yep. It's not about how you look. That's not what it is. You will appreciate that, but it's not how you look. 10 years from now, if I'm able to maintain the same outlook on health, I probably won't be able to lift what I'm lifting now, 10 years from now.
You mentioned, you're not going to go and look like Arnold. But the thing is Arnold doesn't look like Arnold now. Like, he just doesn't. When he was in his 20s, he's literally what we model physical perfection on. He is the physical embodiment of what it was. But now he's a 70-year-old man, still in great shape, but he doesn't look like Arnold.
And he's still prioritizing health.
Yeah.
He still prioritizes health. Honestly, we've heard this scripture over and over and over again, but it's so good. But Paul tells the church at Corinth that our body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. We can understand or take away that when we serve the body properly, our human body, Dave, we are literally, it's an act of obedience to Scripture and worship to its creator. So you can say it's vain. I would say that it's an act of obedience. I'm doing my best to mentally and physically take care of the spiritual nature of my body. If I'm broken, let me tell you, I heard a message, and I'm really in this. I want to know what the elders are saying. And a lot of our elders have passed. And so I've been listening to a lot of Billy Cole, Lee Stone King. He's still alive, but he's not able to get around like he was when he was younger. But Billy Cole tells a story about a man in his church who called him, and probably many of you have heard this, but called him and said, "I need you to get here now." And Brother Cole said, "Well, where are you at?" And he called him from a payphone. And so Billy Cole rushed over to where he was, and the man is laying in the seat of his vehicle and literally shaking. And Billy Cole, as only he could, says, "Man," he calls him by his name, "what in the world are you doing?" And he goes, "I was sitting here praying that God would let me feel the burden of my pastor." This is a true story. And he said, when I prayed that, all of a sudden, he said, I was so overcome. I am physically ill. I can't move. And he was shaking underneath the weight of the spiritual weight, and shaking underneath that weight. And so he's, "Please pray it off of me." And so Brother Cole, as only he would, prayed, and God delivered that man of what the feeling that Brother Cole had. I wouldn't say that any one of us were Brother Cole, but I would say, especially pastors and ministers, we have a tremendous amount of weight. And to think that we are able and capable of of carrying that weight without physically doing our best to do so, I think is, I don't even, what would the word be? It's not ignorant. It's
arrogant.
Whoa, that's a great word. It is arrogant. And I'm not saying, some people might cast stones at this episode and say that which is born of the flesh is flesh. But I'm telling you, Jesus knew when virtue went out of him. He stopped in the middle and said, "Who touched me?" And everybody touched me. And Jesus said, "No, virtue has come out of me." And we realize as ministers that virtue flows out of us. And what are we doing to ensure that we are able to sustain that type of lifestyle 10, 20, 30, 40 years? I've been in ministry now almost full time for 25 years. And it takes a toll on me physically. I am physically worn out after one Sunday, physically worn out. And, so to take care of my temple is an honor to the one that's saying, I want you to say what I say, to pray how I need you to pray, to be where I need you to be, to reach how I need you to reach. And if I'm not physically able to do so, I feel like I'm not honoring my Creator. So I'm trying to be obedient to that scripture in terms of saying I'm doing my best to honor the God that created me and the Spirit that dwells inside of me by ensuring that my temple's at its best. And I'm trying to do an act of worship to the Lord and saying this is important enough to me to say that you're going to have the best part of me.
Well, and that's what it is. It's not vanity. It's an act of self-sacrifice.
It's humility.
By taking care of yourself physically, you are saying no to yourself. So if you haven't heard our episode with Terry Schock talks about how he'll just pick something. It doesn't even have to be anything important. He will say no to himself about that. Mm-hmm. And what it's doing is it's saying no to yourself. Last night, I did not want to get up and I did not want to go to the gym. The program that I'm doing is ever increasing weight. Every single lift gets heavier. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to go do it. And while I was doing it, I was tired. Like you said, I felt better after. But I was able to answer that question of why do I do this to myself? I do this to myself because I want to be there for my kids. I want to be there for my wife. I don't want them to have to do X, Y, or Z because I didn't do the little things because I couldn't free up an hour of my evening to go take care of myself.
Yeah.
What I'm saying and what I'm hearing you say is you're saying that the congregation is worth my time of taking care of myself. And that's what I'm hearing from this entire thing is you are worth, whoever's listening to this, you are worth me taking the time to take care of myself.
My motivation is I look at myself in the mirror and I say, I want to be me as healthy as I can 10 years in the future. I want to look at myself and say, can I operate the way I'm operating 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And when I take a priority or I make physical care a priority, I think to myself what you just said, I'm serving others to the best of my abilities. And to say that I don't want the same food that everybody else wants is ridiculous. When I work out, I want it more. I'm hungry all the time. My muscles are saying, feed me all the time. I want it. I want the same stuff that everybody else wants. But when I say no, there is something fantastic about learning how to say no to yourself. It's a beautiful thing to say no. And we think, hey, I fast one day a week. Well, fantastic. I fast almost every day. In fact, I would say I do fast every day. I'm telling myself no every day.
Yeah.
When I go to the gym, I'm telling myself no every day. Myself says, stay in bed. And I say to myself, no, you're not going to have the best part of me. I'm going to give the best part of me and my health to my family, to the church that I serve, to the kingdom that I serve, and to the God that created me. I'm going to give the best of myself. That's why I do what I do. Thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, I hope you have enjoyed your time with us today and gained something of value. If you love what you heard today, please do not forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. This helps us. Your feedback is incredibly crucial, and we want to improve on what we're doing and to bring you the best content possible. You can find us on Facebook, look us up, Instagram, even YouTube at The Bottom Half is Red. Hey, be sure to check the episode description for any links to any resources that we have mentioned during the show. You don't want to miss out. This podcast is a production of The Church Today here in the great city of Tulsa, and the executive producer is our very own David Tandera. I hope you've had a fantastic time, and we look forward to having you with us again on our next episode of The Bottom Half is Red. We'll see you then.